What's going on, Caribbean Today family? Once again, I'm Andre Clark, and I'm here with a special guest, Mr. Atiba T. Edwards. He was recently named the CEO and president of the Brooklyn Children's Museum, making him the first Black man appointed to this role in the institution's 125-year history. After becoming the museum's chief operating officer in 2019 and taking over as interim president in mid-August of this year. Edwards began his prestigious professional career in finance, working for top companies like JP Morgan's investment bank, before becoming the director of operations at the middle school Brooklyn East Collegiate Charter School. And on a personal note, Atiba is also someone that I've known since junior high school. Scholar head, stand up, scholar rights. Atiba, thank you. Thank you, my friend, for being here and taking time out from your busy schedule to speak with me.
My pleasure, man. We've known each other for far too long in many good ways that any which way I could be of help. It's amazing what you're doing. I'm glad that we were able to connect and reconnect, going back to when you were on stage as well, uptown. So yeah, you're a brother in arms, and I'm happy to show up for in any which way I can, man. You're part of the community.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much. So let's start with what sparked the transition from finance to education and curating these vital experiences for children.
For me, so when I went to school and college, I wanted to do both engineering and business. But my advisor at the time said, it's possible you'll just be in school for probably a little longer than you want. So I worked every summer at JP Morgan as an internship. And it was really a way for me to push myself, but also knowing that, particularly in that day of time, and even to some extent now, you're judged by how you show up on paper. And I know my name automatically is, it's changed slightly, but we'll push that to a side. Like, my name will bring one level of reaction. So for me, working in investment banking was a push to really help solidify my pedigree, my acumen, but also it was just at a space that I was really curious. I wanted to see how this works. And I did, when I was at Bronx Science, we did an intro class, like a student club around finance and investing. So we were running simulations on the market. Back in the day, it was all paper. So we get the paper, I would log into Yahoo Finance, update our stock portfolio to see how we did. It was always a lagging, right? Because we're using closing prices. But that piqued my interest in a way that helped further that in the world of just, I want to be in investment banking. It looks like a really great place, but also it's one space that's going to push what I'll call my own learning and conviction, and the idea that you have to make a call and you have to live with the call. My senior analyst at the time, Eric Selly, is still a great friend and mentor, but that was what he instilled, is like, look, we take what we know, we make a call, and then that's what we hold on to. And then doing that for 5 years, I let him know as well. It's like, look, it's one of those things, like when you do an interview, you don't really lead off with how long you're going to be here. But my third thing to him was that I'm going to give you 5 years of my life. I'm going to make this work, but I'm going to commit to you 5 years. And 5 years played out. I had a chance to go to another bank, and then just took a pause and really was thinking about what was most important to me and how can I transfer my skills to help others. So that's what led to the school. A friend of mine, a dear friend of mine, was director of operations at another of the common schools, and said, look, I've known you for 6, 7 years. You should really check this out. I think there's a chance that you can build on your finance work, build on your work with Focus, an arts not-for-profit I run that's really about connecting those two to help further and really advance communities. And I saw it as a great time, working at a school with, on average, 300 students enrolled, a way for me to help give back in a way that was a bit more tangible and tactful, and really planting the seed for the future. And knowing while I was there, I also was fortunate to have the opportunity to work with some of my colleagues just to do things that help broaden the horizons and the sky for the families and also the kids. And what I mean by that is, every year, my social worker and I would work together at the start, and we would take kids on trips with the notion that the world is bigger than your block. And we at the school have the opportunity to play a role in your development. But more importantly, development is bigger than just a classroom. So we would take students we went to PS1, we went to Brooklyn Museum, We took them down to Scratch DJ Academy so they learned to DJ. All these fun moments where that's what my family did growing up. It was always like, all right, we're going on a trip, we're going somewhere else. And, really, especially, particularly from the Caribbean side, I made mention of this earlier with my mom and my dad. They just trusted us to go and make a decision, and they just wanted to make sure we were safe. And when we got to where we need to get to, we were letting them know that we reached or we made it. So working at the school, I saw that as an extension to help further just what families can do, what they think they're possible, but also knowing how the role of representation is really vital. I am showing up as a Black man, as a Rastafarian, as an immigrant in front of rooms that look like me to some extent, don't look like me to some extent, but for the families, they in some ways saw a bit of kinship and knew that I'm just going to be honest with them. Here's what's working, here's what's not working, here's what we can do better. And,
Right.
That has played a role through into today where a handful of the students and their families were still in conversation. So a couple of them are juniors and getting ready to graduate. The first class just graduated. So it's really the aspect of somebody's deeply invested in growth and opportunity. So that's what led me to the school. And then to the museum, I saw a chance to do what I honed in at the school, but opening up to a larger group. So the school on average was 300,000 students a year. Mm-hmm. The museum, we get 300, sorry, the school was 300 students a year, but at the museum was about 300,000 annually. So I have a chance to work and really expand upon my impact, and knowing that, again, representation means so much. And sometimes people go to a space because they see somebody that looks like them, but also for their younger generation, that representation leads to, aspiration being opened up wider and further along.
Love it. I love it because, like, a lot of times the immigrant story is, it's always a stereotype of parents that, sacrifice to get here, and then they're pushing you to, like, get that, that American dream.
Yep.
Work hard, get the good job, become a lawyer, become a doctor, work in finance, work for one of the biggest banks. But you had a plan for yourself from the very beginning, knowing that you wanted to get to that place where you can really give back and chase your passions. And I love the point as well about representation, which kind of leads me to my next question. In your tenure as the Brooklyn Children's Museum's chief operating officer, you spearheaded initiatives like the launch of a mini golf course on the museum grounds, the inauguration of a state-of-the-art auditorium, but you've also been instrumental in introducing experiences such as the Blank State Monument, which is a touring art installation that aims to change the narrative of the African-American experience during the Civil War, or as well as Celebrate the Caribbean, which you do during Labor Day weekend at the museum. And this year you featured the Moko Jumbi stilt dancers, the Trinidadian Mass Camp Sesame Flyers, steel pan players, and authentic Caribbean food from a bunch of well-known vendors. Out of all your accomplishments in your previous role as COO, what are you most proud of? And in your new position as CEO and president, what are some of the programs and initiatives that you hope to introduce at BCM? I'm definitely thinking about it from a representation standpoint, because, and a diversity standpoint, where you're trying to reflect some of the faces of the neighborhood and really represent that diversity.
I would say as a COO, I'm part of an amazing team. So all of the events you listed off I was just sitting on the team with those folks and made them great. Blank Slate was a little differently because they were connected to me through another friend, and they were saying, hey, we have the truck coming and our first spot fell through. I was like, that's a no-brainer. Come outside the museum. We'll have a chance for families to really interact, because what that monument was telling and the digital aspect where people can write a story on there was important for many people to see, regardless of how you identify and feel like you're culturally represented. The notion of that monument and achieving and overcoming was really essential. But one of the other things that have come up, and I think about 3 years ago we debuted it, was Art Rink. And Art Rink is a synthetic skating rink we put on our rooftop in the winter, but it's surrounded by art from community, local artists, artists from across the world. And that was a really special thing for me because I've been doing a lot of art outside of the museum, and I just kept those circles separate. It was easier for me to work through that for many reasons, but I kept those circles separate. But then working with the team here, it's like, look, let's put some art on the windows, right? Because while we continue to be the first experiences for families, we have an amazing art studio called Color Lab that features and highlights the work of Black artists from the diaspora. Mm. How do we continue that so it's a constant, and art is really important as a daily experience for our families, particularly the children? So that was a thing that I got off the ground and running, and has passed it on to two of our teammates here. And it's been great to see every year. They're friends who I've known, in some cases, almost 20 years, and have been able to do some work with them now to bring them in. And they're like, wow, like I'm in a museum and I can bring my children to see my work as well. So that sort of cycle of joy and reaffirmation has been really great. And then in terms of the role as a CEO, the thing I'm most excited about is the thing I don't even know yet. Meaning there's a lot of great opportunities ahead. There's a lot of sort of things on the fire and in the hopper. And those are building on what we work with here, amazing team across all the departments, but also working to extend our connections to the community from providing space for events and parties and meetings and everything. But I would say, Dre, like the thing, I don't know what I'm most excited about yet because there's a long list of things that I want to get off the ground.